Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how to create your own 3D tile maps like the one I have made here in this game that I have been making. To begin, I'm going to open up Unity Hub and go to New Project, choose 3D, and I'm just going to call this project 3D Tilemap Tutorial. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to put it in my tutorial projects folder and hit create project. For this, I am using Unity 2021.3.27 F1. That is the last long-term support version for the Unity 2021 version. And as of recording, 2022 long-term support isn't quite ready or isn't quite stable enough for me to want to use it yet, so I'm going to continue using the 2021 long-term support version. Alright, now that the project has loaded, I'm just going to maximize it here. And I have a window layout that I typically use to make things a little faster. So I'm just going to select that for myself. And first thing I'm gonna do is open the package manager, and I'm gonna go to the Unity registry, and I'm going to go ahead and import the 2D tile map editor. I will be using this as a base for the 3D rule tiles. I will also install the 2D tile map extras. This gives us the game object brush, which is essential for the 3D rule tile system that I'm going to be setting up. And another thing I'm going to add here is the universal render pipeline, so universal RP. I'm going to go ahead and install that as well. The next step is in the description of this video that you're watching. I'm going to have a link to my GitHub, which I will pull up right here. And this link is going to have a Unity package that you should be able to download, and you'll want to add that to the Unity project that we are working on. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and download this zip file. And I'll just put it in my downloads folder, that's fine. Go ahead and choose show in folder. It's right here. Go to properties, I'm going to unblock it, apply, OK. Right click, extract all, extract. And inside here you'll have a README file which has more information as to how the tool actually works. And right here you'll have the package file. So I'm just going to pull up my Unity project again, and then I can pull up my folder with the download that I just had, and I'll just drag the Unity package into my scene, into like this little project window, and I'm just going to import all of it. So now you'll have a resources folder. You might have like a little warning here about some mesh that I have, so you can just go ahead and clear that. Yeah, so now you have a resources folder, and inside that resources folder is going to be a 3D rule tile folder. The way the system works is based on the tiles that you have out. It's going to look at all of its surrounding neighbors, like on this XZ axis. So not top and bottom, but left, right, top, or hard to describe. But yeah, it's going to be on the XZ axis, and based on what neighbors the tile has, is going to determine what mesh is shown. So first I'm just going to go into the sample scene that I have. I'll go ahead and open that, and you'll see that everything is pink. That's because it's not rendering correctly. So I'll go back up a folder and go into the rendering folder, go to my project settings, graphics, and place the universal render pipeline setting that I have there into the graphics option. And you'll notice my stairs are also not rendering quite right. But if you go into like your project view and go right click and click on refresh, that just refreshes all the materials. So now my stairs render correctly and the scene looks fine. So just to give a little overview of how this tool is supposed to work, I will go up here to MGL Tools in the top taskbar, and I will open the 3D Tilemap Rule Tiles option. And you'll see you have a couple different options here. I would recommend keeping this tile base name the same. It's just going to be rule tile. That's what all the rule tiles for all of your 3D tiles in the scene are going to be labeled as with their tag. So you can see here for this grass tile, it's labeled as a rule tile and it has a rule tile script on it. Combined mesh vertex limit, that one, this value right here is the max. You can go less than this if you want. It's just gonna split up the meshes that you want to combine for each of these rule tiles based on this vertex limit. This is a little under the max that like Unity allows you for one mesh, so that's just what I have it set to for right now. But all of these rule tiles, they'll have like a placeholder in here, and that's just going to be a typical beveled cube. But if I click generate rule tiles, this scene isn't going to change very much because they're already generated. But based on the neighbor tile position, that is going to show what mesh is going to be applied. So you can see for this tile right here, if I move it up, you can see that it's just the top part of the mesh because it doesn't need to show what's on the sides. Whereas this one is just the side edge mesh. So if I just bring those back down, when I click generate rule tiles, that's what that does. Another thing you can do is delete obscured tiles. So if a tile is not completely shown or it's hidden on all sides, top and to the side, when you click delete obscured tiles, you might get a error every once in a while, but if you just click it again, then it'll do that. And it just gets rid of any extra tiles that are in the scene, but you can't actually see them when you're trying to view them. The next button here is generate combined meshes. So what that does is it will combine based on this vertex limit, just a solid mesh. And you can kind of see it goes level by level in the grid. It also does it by type. So all the grass mesh tiles there and the sand ones are separate. This is just to save on like loading time. So I can also just generate rule tiles again to get rid of those. And when you generate combined meshes, it's going to hide all of these rule tiles in here. So all of this that's displayed right now is just the combined mesh. So once you have your combined mesh, you could also delete the rule tiles. What that is going to do is, just like it said, it's going to delete all the rule tiles that are in there. Everything here that's left is not a rule tile. You can see it's not tagged as a rule tile. There's no component there. And when I go in here to Tilemap backup, there is going to be backup tiles for this sample scene. And what it does is it just saves the name of whatever the prefab was that was used, as well as the world position. So if I wanted to, I could restore the deleted tiles, and that's going to get rid of these combined meshes and just put instances of the rule tiles back into the hierarchy over here. If I do that, yeah, they're all back. They're not prefabs anymore, but as long as they have the same name as a prefab, it should be fine. So how do you actually go about drawing or getting your 3D tile map to look like this? So this map is made up of a bunch of different rule tiles. What is a rule tile? If I go in here to my rule tile prefabs, I'll open up my grass ground tile prefab, and what this is essentially just a placeholder block with the material applied here. The material I have here is a triplanar material, so it no matter like what way you rotate it or whatever, it's just gonna have, based on like the way it's facing is how the material is gonna render. Not a great explanation of how that material works, but all you have to know is a placeholder block is right here as a child of the rule tile, and then you have this rule tile 3D script. So you don't have to worry about neighbor positions. You'll want to place the placeholder block as a reference here. And then right here, rule tile is going to be a reference to the scriptable object for this tile. So each tile you can set up your own rules and what material you want applied. So right here, I'll click on this, and then this is the rule tile for the grass block. And you can see here, for the material, I have it set to my triplanar grass shader. Yeah, I just do this because I'm lazy with how I actually do my materials. So feel free to steal this if you want. Let's go back to that scriptable object. So this scriptable object here, you have a list of rules and a material. The rules here are going to be, so looking at it from the top down, this would be like if there's a block to the top left, to the top right, left, right, bottom left, bottom right. And it only works on values -1, 0, and 1. So -1 is going to be there's no 3D tile at that position to the bottom left of the tile in this instance. And 1 is that there is a tile there. And 0 is going to be I don't care. So yeah, going down here, you can kind of see there's a few I don't cares. Essentially what I did here is I already laid out like some basic rules for this tile. And based on that, it's going to determine what mesh is generated. So for each rule, there's going to be a tile reference as well. That is going to be what kind of mesh you want to show. So I have all of these meshes as like a prefab, and it's set up, each block is just set up with a box collider. That way you can draw your meshes and test them with collision without having to combine all of them right away. But yeah, all of these are just going to be defined here. And then if I were to go back to my rule tiles, or sorry, my scriptable objects, you can also see we have a rotation that can be applied. So like, thanks to my triplanar shader, even if I have a rotation applied, it's going to look correct and not like completely upside down. As you can see here, I can move the 3D mesh, but the material kind of stays in place. So let's go ahead and start from scratch. Let's go into our scenes here. I'm going to delete this default sample scene that Unity creates, not my sample scene. But let's go ahead and go to create scene, and we can just leave it as a new scene. So I'll open that. And what I want to do is right click, go to Tilemap and rectangular. And for the grid, I'm going to want to label this as grid. For my specific tiles, I'll want to change the cell size to 2 and the scale to 0.5. And for the cell swizzle, I'll want to change that to XZY. And I can just get rid of this Tilemap thing there. And with my Tilemap 3D rules menu open, I'll go ahead and click add new level. And what that's going to do is add a new Tilemap level to this grid. Oh, sorry, I forgot a step. On the grid, I'm going to want to add the rule tile list 3D script. Now when I add a new level, it should add that. There we go. And there's just some logging here to let you know what was done. So every time you add a new level, it's going to increase the height of the level added by this cell size. So if I added another level, you can see the Y height of level 1 is 2 and the level 0 Y height is 0. And again, that's because I set my cell size to 2. Next thing you'll want to do is go to Window, 2D, Tile Palette, and I usually put mine right here. And we'll want to go ahead and change from the default brush to the Game Object brush. And I'll expand my cells and element 0. And right here is where we're going to want to put our rule tile prefabs. So if I go back to my project, I'm just going to use some of the pre-made ones that I have here. Didn't work. Yeah. So I'm just going to use one of these pre-made rule tiles that I have already made. And rather than starting from scratch creating these rule tiles, I would recommend taking one of these, copying it, and then just making adjustments as you go to change it to whatever you would want. That's what I've done with this tile. Basically all of these tiles. Once I created it, I just copied it and changed up the scriptable object here for the material. And then if there's any special rules that go with it. But for all these, I believe they share like the same rule list. But once we have the game object set, we can go ahead and change our active tile map to level 0, either by going to this drop down and choosing it, or you can choose it from the scene view and it will automatically update the active one that you have selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this rectangle select, so I can go ahead and just draw a rectangle. And you'll see all the placeholders are being drawn and shown here. So the next thing I'm going to do, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some dirt ground tiles on the second level to make like some mountains or a little cliff or ledges or whatever you want to call them. I can add another level, select that level, add some more detail here. And of course, you can just draw whatever you want here. But then once I have all of these drawn, I'll just go ahead and hit generate rule tiles. You can see it smooths that all out. And if we take a look underneath, you can see we're not rendering really any faces that we don't need, thanks to the rules. And another thing I'm going to do is go ahead and delete the obscured tiles. And you can see it doesn't look any different, but if you were to clip into these in places where things are like completely surrounded, I don't know if I have any really of that. But when you hit delete obscured tiles, it's just going to find the tiles that you wouldn't be able to see normally through normal gameplay and just get rid of them, unless of course part of your game is clipping through walls, in which case you'll be able to notice. The next step, once you have a scene with some tiles that you know that you like, you can go ahead and generate the combined meshes, and you'll see right here, it made those combined meshes based on the levels in the grid. It also disabled the existing rule tiles. So I can go ahead and delete those rule tiles, and I recommend keeping this grid with the level layout just in case you want to go here and restore the deleted rule tiles, and then you can continue to paint on the scene. Click generate rule tiles again, generate combined meshes, delete rule tiles, and you haven't lost any progress. So that is basically it. That is how the tool works. If there's any specifics or anything you want me to go into with how this actually functions, what scripts I had to use, how did I make this menu, blah, 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 let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to do follow-up videos on this. If anything's unclear, feel free to comment that as well. I will also do a follow-up video there for anything that just doesn't add up or doesn't seem right or needs a little more explaining. Anyways, thank you for watching. Goodbye.